Okay, so my digital people, this is where I left you. You should have had the time to actually do this sketch up so you can complete it. The next layer, like we were talking about, is adding the details. So what I'm going to do, again, the cool part is I can constantly reference this. I am just going to finish up this by choosing that color. And this is going to be my top layer. Okay, and my fun part here, I'm not going to smudge it. Okay, and then this other tree, again, I always have to look at that image. I have to make sure I'm doing that correctly. If you look, there's a lot of detail here. So it's a lot of little bits and a lot of color. So I'm going to do that in sections. I'm going to pick this and I'm going to start with that color. So it's, you know what, it's a very light brown. I'm going to go a little more orangey. There. That's called a burnt sienna. All right. I'm back on my original layer. Sorry, I have to make that transparent, ensure I'm on the right layer. And so now I'm just going to, again, block in little areas. It doesn't have to be exact. For this part where it's like the branches, I do want to make sure that I'm not just like scraping it all over the sky. Okay, and here I can make the call as to whether or not I want to smudge. And I might actually just smudge to get this flat color down so that I can build up on top of it. What you're going to do after this is you're going to start looking at some of these textured brushes that we have in this program. Okay. I'm tapping because then it doesn't do a huge smudge. It just gives me just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to leave that, and then I want to bring out this. At this point, the goal is just to get everything in there. I just want to make sure that I have all of the basics of what I'm working with. Remember too that these pencil drawings, so like the lines that I'm using, they aren't necessarily going to be there when I'm done. I don't have to use them. So that's an option. Like I can keep them if I want, if I think it brings something to the image. But if I think it just takes away, then I'm not going to bother. You're the artist. You get to make most of the calls. Okay. Again, I'm going to smudge. I'm going to use the small and I'm just going to tap, because I want to maintain that kind of rough look. It reminds me of the leaves and the foliage. Okay. So if you look, I've done a lot of, like, this last little bit has been mostly just me tapping, not over smudging like I did with the sky or the ground or anything like that. That's because these things are more detailed. So I need those colors to be more vibrant. I don't want them, if you look at the rest of it, it's kind of muted. I don't want it to wash out. So I'm going to leave the trees for now. And I like to move around. So I like to work in different areas. I'm going to go back over here. And I'm going to smooth out the grass. The one thing I noticed, and it's bugging me, is I want to make sure that my grass moves horizontally. So if you look, I'm actually just going back and forth and changing the direction of the smudge so that it's a horizontal movement. The main reason I'm doing this is because I hate it when the grass is the other way. That's not how grass looks. Okay, so I'm just keeping it, moving it horizontal, making sure it goes the right way for what it is. Okay, I'm gonna just take my eraser and tidy it up because I don't want it to go over top of these rocks. There we go. Okay, so now my big goal is I'm gonna start cleaning it up and adding detail. I would like to start with the sky again. Okay, so I kind of did a little bit on the sky already. I can like bring my image back. The sky is actually looking pretty good. I'm gonna add some of the darker tones to the sky because we just used that one color. So get my dropper. Oh, just make this transparent. There. Okay, and I'm gonna find that darker tone for the sky. I want the darker clouds. Actually, let's go with this light blue. So that's a little closer. All right, so then I'm gonna bring the sky back and disappear that. I've got my pen still. I'm gonna add just a little bit of the darker blue to the areas that I think it would work in. Like I said, you are under no obligation to make it identical to the picture. You want to use your own instincts. You want to use your own creativity. You know what a sky should look like, okay? You don't need me to tell you what a sky is. The picture is mostly for the general layout and for the colors. We need the colors. Okay, so once I've added all of these little areas, I am going to smudge for this because the sky is smudgy. So I've still got my smudger on like a small size. So I'm just gonna use that circular motion I was using before. Okay, and I'm just gonna keep doing little circles and just adding to it. I'm gonna move my brush around. So remember, if I go into the white area or the lighter area, I can drag it in. Okay, I want to smooth out these areas to some extent because the sky doesn't look like there's actual like big chunks of stuff sitting in it. It's a very, very gradual change in most cases. If you ever see a sky that looks like there's a big chunk of color or anything sitting in it that's like completely unrelated to anything else, you probably should move quick because that's a chemical spill. Okay, so if you look, I'm just adding to this. I'm sure at this point you guys have figured out the back arrow. If you have not, if you make a massive mistake, so if there's something here that you're like, oh God, I just ruined everything, just use the back arrow. The traditional art people, when we're doing that, we don't have a back arrow. So this is like, again, one of the areas where digital art is superior. I do like the fact that, you know, if I mess up, I don't have to just start over. I can, you know, bring it all together and just go back to the spot that I was happy with. Okay, so if you look, this is kind of where I'm at with the sky. I'm all right with this. I can add more and take more. I can always add white in there too. So white isn't just the background or the eraser. I can make white a color. It just doesn't come in that well. So the other thing that you can do if you want more white is take your eraser again and just add it in. Okay, then smudge it again. With the sky, there is a lot of smudging because, again, smoothness. All right, you want to make it look like actual clouds, which is why I'm using that circular motion with my brush. All right. So I'm going to leave the sky for now. Obviously, it's going to get a little bit more work as we go along. I'm going to make this big. Yeah, so I made the smudger really, really big. I'm just tapping right now because it actually lightens it up. So it'll smooth it out a little bit, lighten it up, and then I can just add into it again or take away from it again. It's going to be like almost all of this art is that, like just add on, take away, add on, take away. All right. Now that I'm done that, I choose another area to work. The cool part about digital is I don't have to choose just one area. Now, this line over the mountain or the escarpment is driving me crazy. So I'm going to take my eraser and I'm just going to erase it. Okay, I'm going to be careful because I do not want to erase some of the stuff. So I don't want to erase the telephone poles yet, but I am going to just erase that top line and then work backwards. Okay, so once that's done, I go back to this, which is the details on the top. I'm going to smudge those together a little bit. Okay, so that I am ready to add more detail. All right, so once that's done, I look at my picture. Oh, make sure that goes transparent. There's so many layers now. All right, I'm just looking at my picture to see what different colors there are. And we're getting to the point where I'm not going to be able to reference that picture anymore. So I've just got to really take it in or look at the picture as a separate image and try to get this line, this landscape, the part where the different trees change color. That's kind of where you're paying your special attention. Okay, so I'm going to minimize that. I am going to use this now, which is an ink brush. And at this point, I have the basic colors down, so I'm going to choose my own colors. I'm going to go off book. Okay, so I know generally what colors I'm going to use. So that warm brown, if you look, so the thing I'm choosing to use right now is an ink brush, which means it's going to give me very strong colors. It's not going to give me the like floofy thing that I was working with before. And that's kind of what I'm looking for here. I'm going to smudge it a little bit to lighten it up because it doesn't look real when the rest of it is like all soft and then there's this. But I'm not going to take it out that much. So I'm going to use the brush this time. I'm going to make sure it's very small. And I'm just going to like go up and down. All right, so it's maintaining that strong line that I'm liking, but there we go. Okay. Now I'm going to take a lighter color. And again, this is all me at this point. I am now working just with my imagination and my photo reference. Okay, I've still got my ink brush, and now I'm going to add this lighter orange in. And again, it's just tiny, tiny bits. And same thing. All right. So if you could see me now, you'd laugh. I'm like essentially hunched over the screen. Like, you could probably see my hair. Even though I could go like this and like blow it up, I just prefer to work small. Okay, remember, if it's getting too orange, you can always drag the top down and it will create that brown again. You don't want this to be a completely smooth line. Remember, these are trees. Okay, trees do not create a totally smooth line. I don't know if anyone has ever been to a forest where everything is like absolutely smooth. That's so super creepy. Okay, so trees are jagged. So if you're looking, I'm just adding this. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can add in my darks again. So this time I'm going to go back to my brownie color. I'm going to darken it up. And then I'm going to switch over to the marker because markers are pretty transparent. So I'm just going to add in now my darks to create that contrast. So remember, just like when we were coloring in the drawing unit, you want your lights bright, like white, and you want your darks dark. You want to create that like contrast. If you don't have contrast, what's going to happen, it's all going to fade into nothing. So it'll just look like a murky gray. And you don't want to do straight lines. You want to just be a little free-handed with it. So I'm using like up and down motion to just kind of like create these areas. All right, so if you look back, I've spent a lot of time doing this on just this one area. Now, these are the details. So the first part you're going to do is you're going to work on the background and you're going to work on the midtone. We can come back later and then I'll show you how to start working more into the foreground. But right now, those are the main things that you're going to work on. When you do start getting into the foreground, it's the same basic principle. You're going to look at your image and you're going to look for the whites, the darks. So I'm just going to use a marker so that you can see what I'm doing, but I'm going to erase this once I'm done. Okay, so you're going to use like the light. The dark is here. The dark is here. Dark, 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 dark. You're going to smudge, and then you're going to use your eraser tool, and you're going to add the whites back in. And you just keep going back and forth until it all works out. Okay. So in the end, it should look a lot like this, which is just kind of like a blurry little bit. And then the very, very final thing is going in with specifically small brushes and adding detail. See, if you're looking here, I'm toning down this orange because I find it's very bright. I want it a little less. Okay, so this is the point where you're at. This is the second part where you're just going to add detail on all the different layers, moving from the background to the foreground. By the time we're at the next part, all of that should be colored in.